Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm very excited to be here. I just want to thank everyone for coming out to PonyFest online for the third time. And I'm really excited for this panel. This is something that I have wanted to do for a while. I always thought that at BronyCon, it might be fun to have a sort of Ask the Mascots event or something like that. Never really came to fruition. And it never really occurred to me as something that would be appropriate to do at other conventions, right? Since it's not the right IP. But I figure an online event like this is pretty much perfect. So I'm glad we have this opportunity. But sure, so I figure we'll get started with introductions. Hello, my name is Simul. I played Hoof Beatz at BronyCon for a total of 5 years, which is weird to think about. And now, how about you two lovely ladies introduce yourselves as well?
Hi, I'm Wiggles, and I played Blank Canvas for 5 years as well.
And I'm Shelbeanie. I was main event for 2 years.
That's right. So for anyone who's ever been to BronyCon, there's a very good chance you met one of us or all of us or two of us wandering around the halls. It was a really fun job that we got to do. And I figured it would be a great time to talk about it. But first, how are you guys doing? It's been a while. I don't think I've really talked to you guys since the end of the last BronyCon.
It's been crazy since the last BronyCon. The world shut down, so
Yeah.
chunk of that's been a little odd.
Definitely.
The dream. Don't wake me up.
You guys handling the lockdown all right? Keeping your spirits up?
Doing what we can. There's been a lot of binge watching and a lot of closet cosplays and TikToking.
TikToking? Yeah. I haven't really checked out TikTok all that much. I know that it's weird. It's mostly people younger than I am. And even that is weird to think about because when I first got into this fandom, I was like one of the younger members of it. I think I was like 15 or something. So yeah. Oh goodness. I am getting an EAS for nothing of note, actually. I'm gonna ignore that. Sorry about that. My phone was freaking out for a moment. Anyway, yeah, it's great to hear from you guys. I figure we've all had like a few other things going on. You guys still do other cons and stuff, right? Just ones that you like to attend? Where you been recently? Where you been recently?
Of the LARPing, live action role playing. It's like
that's right. I forgot you did that. That's so cool. I guess that kind of works as like a good background thing to like have experience in if you're going to be doing a job like mascotting at BronyCon.
Yeah, it definitely helps with like improv and making stuff up on the fly. It's great.
Yeah, and Shelby, I know you have theater background. Jordan, you do too, right? Some in school, that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely goes a long way. I guess the first thing, if we just want to go over some basic topics, just to let everyone watching this know the way this is going to work, I'm just going to take a while to catch up with these guys because it's, like I said, it's been ages, but I figure around the last 20 minutes or so, we'll take some Q&A from the audience. And if you have questions for us, you can post those in neural net stage questions. I don't know if it's open right now. It doesn't need to be open now. We'll probably leave it a little bit until we get closer to that. But I figure basically some background stuff to go over is how we all got into mascotting for BronyCon in the first place. And I'll let one of you go first. Let's have an established order. We'll always do Jordan and then Shelby and then me.
Okay.
All right. So they put the auditions for mascots up, and I was like, oh, that looks fun. And it's weird because I didn't do a lot of cosplay before mascotting. So they're like, okay, you need to know how to act. I'm like, yeah, acting, check. Improv, check. I've done so much improv. I got this. You need to make your own costume. And I was like, maybe? Sure. I can do that. Fine. And then we did the auditions, and I had a bunch of improv experience because I used to do sketch comedy in college and improv at conventions in college. So I think that helped me snag the job. I was in Whose Line Is It Anyways the year before that they did auditions.
Oh, awesome.
They're like, oh my gosh, we remember you from that terrible panel. Like, yeah, that was me.
How about you, Shelby?
Mine's a little different than both of y'all's because I did not have to audition. I was specifically asked to come on to take up the mantle. Before I joined on as a mascot, I was in the Grand Galloping Gala. I was the Fluttershy. For most of them, I was Adagio in one of them. And so once Kat took up the cosplay department and they needed a new main event, they asked me to do it. But like all the things that Jordan said are the things that I do too. I do a lot of theater. I make my own costumes. I've been sewing since I was 12. I've been singing my whole life. So it just was sort of a natural fit for me.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I knew basically nothing about it. The only reason I even found out that they were doing auditions, and this would have been in 2015, when that was the first year that we had mascot cosplayers for BronyCon, and the first year I ever went to BronyCon. It had always been a con that I wanted to check out, right? Because it's like it's Brony Mecca. It's the big one. And I always wanted to have some sort of excuse. And then it came along in the form of doing that. And I was given the link to the application by Blue, who was the original main event cosplayer, shout out. And she was just like, hey, this looks like something you might be interested in, because we were both into that sort of like performing arts, sort of theater kind of thing, and filled out the application. And I remember hearing back, and we did like a Skype audition with Penny, who was in charge of cosplay at the time. Yeah, and she just seemed to think I did a good job, evidently, because I ended up getting it, and that's kind of how it happened. And I have to say, if it hadn't happened, I don't even know if I ever would have made it to BronyCon, right? Because it is a ways out there. I'm all the way over here in Seattle. I think you two are both closer to the East Coast, yeah?
South Carolina, and you're in North Carolina, right?
Yep.
So we're over there. We're on the East Coast.
You probably would have been able to see the rocket today, like if you actually looked up at the right time, because I think it was going up the coast.
What that I knew.
Pretty historic stuff, anyway. Yeah. BronyCon was just always this thing that was out there. You knew it was big. There was so much hype about it. And yeah, it was just great to have that opportunity to go over there. Like I said, it would have been prohibitively expensive. Otherwise, one thing some people might know is that if you staffed for BC, you either, for a long time, they were doing either hefty discounts, or you would actually get a free hotel room, which is not something that's common for con staffing. So that definitely helped a lot. I don't know if I would have been able to make it otherwise, but sure do appreciate it. Thanks, BronyCon.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me try to think back. I've got a bunch of really interesting memories kind of from that first one, that first event. How long was the gala going on? Was the gala a thing before 2015 as well?
I can't quite remember because I joined it the second year. The first year was 2014, I want to say. And that was when I had just started my princess business, and I had an Elsa gig during the con that nobody would do for me. I was like, hey, I have an event. Can you do this party? No. And I was like, I guess I'm not going to BronyCon. So
I just have to say, the concept of a princess business sounds lovely. So that's you would do like birthday parties and things in costume, yeah?
Yeah, it's not too different from mascotting, to be honest. I know Jordan and I both do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been sewing since I was 12. So again, it just sort of was a mixture of doing theater-y related things. My vocal degree actually got used.
Nice.
And getting to work on character work and stuff is always fun. Even though you're only doing it for 30 minutes, kids ask a million questions. So
yeah, no kidding. I think that also, this is something I think about with Everfree too. That's really fun, is for the younger kids especially, a character or a person that's dressed up as a character often feels more like that character to them than, say, the voice actor for the character would. Right?
Yeah.
So that's always been like a really cool, unique sort of component, where if there's younger kids at an event like that, they definitely get a lot out of it. It feels real to them, right? It's like you're really meeting Cinderella, you're really meeting Ariel, or whoever else it might be. And that was definitely something that I'm sure must have carried over into BronyCon as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually one of my favorite things at Everfree is getting to work in the kids' room. I really love getting to work with the kids. They, again, always have a million questions, and so if you have not done your character work, they will trip you up. They will catch you.
You got to do your research, right? These kids
You got to do so much research.
Drill you on the details.
Yeah.
That's how you get it's young fans in the making, right? It's the con goers of the future, hopefully anyway. Yeah.
I always approached Mascot kind of with the princess mindset where I was like, I always have to be in character. If people come up to me and are like, hey, Wiggles, I'm like, no, I play Candace.
I guess I did the same thing.
Same thing would happen to me. It was weird. There was one time I was emceeing, I was like moderating a panel with Gabe Brown and Daniel Ingram. I think it was in like 2018, something like that. And I had introduced myself backstage to Daniel. I'm like, hi, I'm Cole. And he's like, nice to meet you. And then on stage, he referred to me as that. And I'm like, no, I'm Hoof Beatz. Don't call me that. I didn't actually say that. It wasn't like a huge deal. But there were moments like that where I'm like, no, don't break the immersion.
Immersion.
Yeah.
That's when you go, my name is Cole, but you will call me Hoof Beatz on stage.
Yes, which I neglected to do. That's what how it should have gone for sure. And actually that was another fun component of doing the whole mascot gig, was seeing how it evolved from one year to the next. I remember the first time in 2015 that we did it, we basically showed up, but there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of stuff that was prearranged for us to do, right, Jordan? We had to sort of like find things, like it was a lot of wandering.
A lot of mandatory wandering.
Mandatory wandering, that was the keyword. And that got written into our schedules in future years. That was like a joke that kept popping up. That first year, just because it was such a new concept, I think the con was still trying to figure out like where would we fit best, what's the best use for these guys. So we had to sort of find our own way, but it did inform a lot of what then got written into the schedules later on, where in future years we had, okay, at this time you're going to this event, you're going to moderate this, you're going to show up at this contest, you're going to go talk to these people. And then, yes, the mandatory wandering, where it's just wander around as a group because people always want to take photos. And I still have to apologize to people who were never able to get photos of all three of us together because it was so difficult to find time when we would actually be free. I remember that being like a whole issue.
I know last year in particular, there was no time for group wandering.
Yeah.
Mascot stuff and the gala and like, whew.
That was a very packed schedule. But like, I feel like we were given a lot of freedom to be involved with self-planning a lot of that stuff, or at least sort of making suggestions about where we might best be used. So it never bothered me to have like a super packed schedule, because I tend to, if I don't have anything to do, that's when I tend to feel the most anxious. Is like, what can I be doing? What do I do with my hands? Right? Like,
yeah. I get bored. I'm like, please give me stuff to do. I want to be doing something every minute. Like,
yeah.
Since I was coming from being a panelist and doing the gala and stuff, my default for everything was like panel. So I didn't have any mandatory wander time because I was always going back to the room and changing from, Twilight Sparkle to Apple Bloom or something and going to another Ask a panel or having gala rehearsal. It was just nonstop.
Yeah. And I remember the first year I went to BronyCon, I also was involved in the gala. For me personally, the years moving past that, I decided to take a step back from that area just because it was like a bit too much for me.
It's a little high stress.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But you guys always did a fantastic job. I always thought that was one of the coolest, most unique things at BronyCon was the gala crew. And seriously, shout out to Kat and Jeff and everyone who was involved with the gala crew. Every single year, the people in the chat will know it was amazing every time. Even the years when it was put in a room that was too small, it still ended up being fun.
Well, that was terrifying.
There was the one time it felt like a fire code violation. It was, I forget the name of the hall, but it was one of the upper level panel rooms that was just of like an intermediate size. It wasn't like the top one that had the big high ceiling.
Yeah, that was the year that we did the Dazzlings in the gala.
Yes.
And they kept trying to put chairs around the stage so that we had some people not up in our faces. But yeah, people were right on the stage, and it was terrifying. They wouldn't let me get through my lines. They're like, "You're a bad guy. You're not going to get through your plan." And I'm like, "Please let me just say my line so I can get off stage."
This is not supposed to be this interactive.
I know we talk to the audience, but you're not supposed to talk back. You're supposed to cheer, yell, and go boo.
Yes, that was in that room, they didn't have the little barricade between the stage. Just kind of right up there. I remember popping up there because I was down in the lower floor for BronyPalooza, but I would pop up on occasion. That was the year we had the GoPros. I remember them giving the off-brand ones, which I'm mad because I don't know if they ever ended up doing anything with those clips.
Yeah, I don't know. I went through a bouncy house with one.
Yes, we raced through the bouncy house. I remember that and recorded it, and I want to see that again. I don't even know who has possession of those off-brand GoPros or whatever happened to those clips, but I would love for those to be unearthed at some point. I think that would be very fun. Oh man, I'm just trying to think. Like, it's weird to process everything that happened in all the years that we were doing that. In no matter what role we were in, just because. I mean, for me, it was a total of 5 years going to that con, and yet, so it felt long, but at the same time, it's just 5 weekends, right? So the whole thing together is like 15 days, 16, because the last one was 4 days.
Well, it's that, but it's a year of getting ready for it, because like they gave us scripts by the end for all of the things, and we had things that we had to prepare to physically have there. We basically spent a year getting ready. So yeah, it's 5 years. Yeah,
and it's crazy to think about, just because I remember being really emotional. It's so interesting because people ask me, like, was it sad to be at the last BronyCon? And it's like, yes, but there was a lot more emotion the year before, because it was when we were just finding out that the next one would be the last one.
Right. Yeah.
I think by the time that we got to the last, like, I remember closing ceremonies. First of all, they dropped that info on us that the next one would be the last one at the very last minute, right before closing. And I half appreciate that, because it's like, thank you for not having this thing weigh on our shoulders the whole weekend. You at least spared us from that. But also, like, oh my gosh, so much to process. And we had to like put together that skit.
Oh man.
Right there, like, on the spot, pretty much. You know,
memorize this in 2 hours.
Yeah. And we were able to. Everyone was very misty-eyed backstage before that announcement was made. I just remember how impactful that was, and like all the people that we met afterwards, too. Right? Like that was so. This is going to be like a rambling mess, this whole panel, just because there's so much to cover. But it was so crazy, because it's like, okay, you guys have just been like crying because you're so filled with emotion. Now go take photos with people. Like, okay, my eyes are going to be all red.
So sad.
There were a lot of people, because like my last line in that was like, what's gonna happen? And main event was like super sad. And I was sort of just like, I hadn't processed it yet, because it just was like a lot really fast. And I have to focus on the here and the now, and I can't focus on the future until I have time to process. Right. There were people coming up afterwards, giving me hugs and going, it's going to be okay, main event. You're going to be okay. And I'm just like, you guys are so sweet. Like.
Yeah, for real. And I think that's probably one of the most rewarding things about it for me personally, was interacting with people. You'd find people that would. It's so interesting, because I'd have people come up to me and they're treating you like the character, right? Like they'd address me like, "Hey, Hoof Beatz, what's up?" You know, and I would introduce myself that way too. But you'd hear stories from people of how they ended up at the con or how they got into the fandom to begin with, and it was always so interesting to hear from people that are saying that, you know, MLP saved their life, or MLP allowed them to open up, come out of their shell, something like that. You know, just many different ways that different people have gotten something out of this community. So, I mean, just for that alone, I feel like my time at BronyCon is going to be something that just sticks with me for the rest of my life, just for that reason on its own.
And I think that one of the things that you guys and Blue did in the like 3 years before I joined on was you guys really built a story, and people were super invested in the mascots by the time I got there. And I just sort of had to bring what I felt about the character into the character, but everybody was still like, they were already there emotionally with the characters because you guys had built it for 3 years leading up to that, which is really cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think it was fortunate. There was definitely some backstory that had already been established for those characters. I'm sure a lot of people might be familiar with the Tumblr comic that was up. I don't even know when exactly that was made, but I read the whole thing ahead of time just to sort of acclimate to the character a bit. But for the most part, I felt like I could mesh into Hoof Beatz really easily. And we sort of got this cool opportunity where we almost got to sort of define what those characters' personalities were. Just because, you know, it was in some cases a blank slate, a blank canvas. And that's a very unique situation. It's not often where you get some sort of gig that involves you getting to decide what the character is. So that in itself was also really rewarding, I think.
And I thought it was fun that while they were casting us, they kind of looked out for people that fit into those grooves, where it's like, Cole, you're a musician, and Jordan, you're an artist. And Blue and Shelby are both like, stage people.
Very showy, yeah, exactly. Know how to be on a stage. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a very awesome opportunity to kind of get to walk through it that way. Well, let's see, we're about 22 minutes in. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover before we go over to questions, although I'm sure people have a lot of them, and answers might take longer than I think. So maybe we'll go in on this a bit sooner. But I wanted to know if you guys had any specific anecdotes or funny stories or just weird memories, things that maybe like attendees might not have seen, but like weird behind the scenes kerfuffles, anything like that.
The wigs.
The wigs. Oh my God. Yes. More than anything else, those wigs.
Oh my God.
Okay. Who wants to tell this story?
I feel like it's multiple stories.
It is multiple stories. Who wants to start this one?
So I guess background on the costumes, first of all, because some people have asked about that. How were the costumes for the characters developed? It was really cool. Again, as part of getting to define the character, we at the beginning had a lot of freedom to kind of choose the outfit as well. I remember Hoof Beatz was essentially closet cosplay, in the sense that it's just regular clothes that I can sort of get together, and I think about the color scheme of the character, right? Well, it's like, okay, I can get nice dark blue shirts at like American Apparel or something like that. I can just iron on the cutie mark with one of those iron-on printer patterns. Yeah, I feel like he's maybe a little bit punk rock or something. We'll do like the ripped jeans kind of look, you know. It was fun, but we got a lot of freedom to develop those costumes on our own. And just by happenstance, Jordan, you and I ended up both getting the like sort of plaid look. But I always thought that was kind of neat as well.
Yeah, friendship.
Yes, but the wigs. I forget, those were, was it Arda or Epic Cosplay? I think it was Arda.
Either way,
I want to say it was Arda. I know the second set that we got for the last year was Arda because I picked him out, said these are the colors, send them to me so I can style them.
Those were great. Those were good wigs. Compared to like what we'd had before. I mean, they were always great, but like there was always some weird issue that would happen with them.
My wings, like I had the big ponytail, and I think Blue had made the wigs and she dyed them with Sharpie, which is a great idea. Except I have my beautiful white wings and they would bleed all over the back of my costume. So by the time I took my wings off, they would be bright purple. I'm like, it's fine. They're paint splatters. What?
Sharpie dye is hard on wigs. It's a complicated process for sure.
I've never actually tried it. But then again,
it's time consuming, and there are I know I've found, because Blue and I sort of started doing Sharpie dyeing around the same time. Since then, I have found more effective ways, like pure pigment, using that instead of, or Rit synthetic dye actually does a really good job of dyeing, but that's a fairly recent development. But yeah, no, we started Sharpie dyeing around the same time, and that's a messy one.
Mm-hmm. I just remember
that, like, it happened.
Yeah. I never really, I tend to steer away from cosplays where I need to wear a wig. I've more often than not just sort of changed my own hair to match the character as best as possible. Like, so I bleached my hair one time. I'm like, okay, I'll do blonde characters for a few months until this comes out again. Right. I don't like tight hats. I don't like, I mean, those wigs, you both know, like after a full day of wearing those, it can get like, I mean, you peel it off and it's like, just, you know, especially the hair nets underneath where it would like push my hair down, and you could feel that it like bent the follicle in that direction, and just like doing this afterwards would be like the best and worst feeling.
Yeah.
Like I never really, I still try to avoid wigs when I can. I'm just not very into them. But I mean, the first wigs we had served us fairly well for the first few years, although every year we'd have to dig them out of storage and they were all ratty and we'd have to brush them out. Then there was, I believe it was 2018. Oh boy. I want to see, people in the chat might have noticed this, that our wigs looked a little bit different for some reason. Funny story behind that. No one actually got them out of storage or anything ahead of the con. And so by the time con was around, we're all in Baltimore, and it comes to light the wigs are in Seattle. Okay, problem. And luckily, I think it was, who lent us those wigs? The replacement.
So I'm pretty sure that your and my wig were Kat and Jeff's, I want to say DJ Pone 3 wigs.
Yes, yeah. I had the vinyl scratch one.
Yeah, and I think mine was maybe also that, but it was a different one. I don't know. And I think that you had Alexa's Rarity wig.
I had her second Rarity.
Her second Rarity wig.
Would stack 2 wigs on top of each other to have huge hair. So she was like, "Oh, you can have my under wig."
Right. And I remember for opening ceremonies that year, we didn't have the ears in time. So anyone who was at those opening ceremonies, if you pay close attention, you might have noticed that none of the mascots had ears.
Not only did we not get the ears on time, we barely had the wigs on time.
Yeah. Shelby was back there 10 minutes before we go on stage, just styling her main event wig, just like do. And looked gorgeous. She did this giant, beautiful swoop in like 5 minutes. Literally, because everyone's running around going, "We have to get wigs. They're going on in 10 minutes. Here's a Rarity wig. Here's a DJ Pony wig. Can we do anything with these?" And Shelby's like, "Yeah."
It's like, here, just let me put this on a wig head real quick.
That was a bit of a Hail Mary pass there. But it all came together, and it always seemed to with BronyCon. There was never a moment where like anything went catastrophically wrong, at least in the sense that it's something that the attendees saw, right? And that's just true of any con, by the way. If you think there's nothing going wrong, you're wrong. There is. You just don't know about it because the staff are great and they're good at keeping it under wraps. Anyone who's staffed cons knows that's just kind of how it works. You know, part of the experience. But it also results in this sort of thing where, like, if I'm at Everfree, say, and everything's going right, I like get anxious because I'm like, where's the fire? Like, someone tell me what's going wrong so I can go fix it. I'll like end up hunting for fires to put out. You know, but anytime there's not a fire, it is pretty nice, actually. Yeah, so that was fun. Those were the wigs that were not meant to be used by the mascots at all. We ended up pulling them together. And the ears, I believe, we bought from a vendor.
Yeah, well,
the vendor hall.
The reason it took them so long to get us the wigs was because they were like, we're gonna go to the Yaya Han booth,
yeah.
and get wigs right before it. We're going to grab this one, and this one. And then they got down there and they were like, yeah, we don't have those. We don't have those wigs. And they were like, ah!
Yeah.
It was a mess.
It's definitely a mess at times, but it was our mess and we made it work.
It was our mess. We made the best of it. I mean, like, it wasn't too stressful once we got the wigs. It was the waiting in the room and going,
Johnson!
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
It's the not knowing, right? Where there's like nothing really in your direct power to like fix the situation and it's out of your hands. That's when it's like really like, come on, like what's going on here? But again, like shout out to all the BronyCon staff for like figuring out a solution on the spot. That's one of the things that impressed me the most about BronyCon is just how the staff had so much drive. Like everyone you could tell everyone was really passionate about what they were doing and they cared about making things run well. They weren't just phoning things in, you know? And that was something I always appreciated. BronyCon staff culture, at least from my perspective, always seemed really positive, at least on a like a superficial level. Again, there's always politics going on no matter what con it is, but everyone seemed happy and friendly and amicable. And that was one of the nicest things about working BronyCon, I think. So I have a funny story. And Shelby, I don't know if even you have heard this. You might have. Jordan will remember this from the very first. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Jordan knows. So this is day one of BronyCon, and it's the first year they had mascots. So it's my very first time doing this. And I wake up and I like get out of bed in my hotel room and I just feel weird. Like I just feel not good. And I get dressed, I get into cosplay, I'm all ready to go. I'm feeling like really weird, sort of jittery, kind of nauseous. And I start walking down the hallway and suddenly I realize, oh, yeah, I need to vomit. So I have to rush back to my hotel room to do that. And by the time I get to the convention center, I'm still feeling really sick. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. Because the day before I was perfectly fine. But I end up feeling really sick and we're getting ready for opening ceremonies. And I'm sitting backstage and I remember they called up a medic, like one of the staff EMTs, which BronyCon staff had like actual professional EMTs in their infirmary, which I've never seen any other con do. And I thought that was super interesting. But so a medic comes up and just sort of checks me out, like to make sure that I'm doing okay and gets me water and stuff. And I'm here like, if you don't feel like you can do it, it's okay. We'll make it work with just the two of them. And I'm like, no, I will suffer for my craft. And this is a story like, I feel like I might even get in trouble for telling this, but the con is dead. It doesn't matter.
I can't fire you.
Yes. I end up going on. Whoever was there at BronyCon 2015 will see, yes, Hoof Beatz was indeed there at opening ceremonies in 2015. What they don't know, because the way it worked is we would sort of go up and do stuff. Hey, welcome everybody. Have a good time. And we go off and there'd be some other presentation of staff going on. And then we'd come back on again, like, hype. And then they'd do some more staff things and we'd go on and off, right? So I was there on stage. What attendees don't realize is that every time I was off stage, I was throwing up in a garbage can behind the stage. It was literally, I would go up, do my thing, come off, throw up in a garbage can, go back up again, keep doing it. And I have never told that. Yeah, I have never told that story in public before, but a few of my friends know about it, and
oh my gosh,
that was lovely. And then after opening that year, I ended up going down to the infirmary and just laying down for maybe like 40 minutes. And very quickly, they got me some water and like a baggie, right? And after not long at all, I felt perfectly fine. It was this weird thing that the only other time I've ever had that kind of thing happening was the very first time I was ever in a school play. Was I had really weird nerves or something going on. And it's weird because I don't recall actually feeling nervous about going on. By that point, I'd had experience working on a stage, but there were other things going on, just sort of personally and things that were bothering me that just sort of threw things out of whack that year. And it was, but I made it through it. And a lot of people will tell you, like, you know, put your health above the performance, which is true. In retrospect, that wasn't the best idea. It really, I wouldn't recommend to anyone else that you do what I did, but that felt like my solution at the time. I wanted to be there for the first appearance of the Mascots, and I have no regrets. So there's a funny story that many people might not know. So I think we should probably get to some questions because we're about halfway through. So I'm going to go ahead and read through Neural Net Stage questions. That's the channel you guys watching should post your questions in. I see it's already been open for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and try and start at the top. Okay. Jordan, TJ says, who is best mascot and why is it blank canvas?
I'm just so cute.
I think everyone has their favorites.
Yeah, I think TJ is a little biased.
Maybe, perhaps. Shout out to TJ. Let me see. Okay. Taylor, we might all know Taylor from Twitter. Hey, Taylor. Hey, everyone. Great to hear from you all again. Had a question. Being the BC Mascots, how did you mentally prepare for each event? Miss you, Simul and Shelby. Heart. Thank you, Taylor.
So
mentally
sweet.
prepare. Who wants to take that one first?
Are we gonna go in our set order?
Oh yeah, I have to go first.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really mentally, I don't like, you know, go into a place or something. I'm kind of just like, all right, time to act, let's go. And blank canvas is just me, but in a slightly higher pitch. So it's easy to just slip into blank canvas, I think.
I know that for me, with any and all characters that I do, I sort of find the thing that connects for me, the thing that I connect with the character, and then I just sort of let that take over and build. And so for main event, it was the love of performing and being on stage. She's a little bit more neurotic than I am. Not quite as neurotic as Twilight Sparkle, but she's still kind of neurotic. And I just sort of like rolled with it. Once I found my in, I pretty much just, once you put the wig on, you are the character.
Right. Yeah. Jordan, I think I definitely relate to what you're saying, just because, again, like I mentioned, the fact that we were sort of able to define what the characters were as we kept up those roles, it kind of meant that like I didn't even really necessarily think of it much as acting, just because the personality of the character so closely matched my actual personality. It was super easy to just be, you know, and I like meeting people. I like hearing people's stories about how they got to the con and all that. And it was super easy for me to just be like, you know, chill, which is kind of how I would describe Hoof Beatz. He's very chill. He's laid back, you know, and he doesn't have fingers, but he's like the finger gun kind of person, right? And that's me. That's definitely me. So I found that very simple to slip into character. Yeah, not much in terms of mental preparation, I think. So thanks for the question, Taylor. Okay, let's see. I'm not going to read all of these. I'm going to try and look for the best ones here. This is an interesting one. Twinny says to everyone, what was everyone's most euphoric moment while representing the BronyCon mascots? So happiest moments, things we got the most enjoyment out of. If there's like one thing we could name.
Just talking to people, getting to meet people and hear their story. Like you said, that's anytime that I can make someone else happy, I'm happy. So seeing other people just so happy to be able to talk and interact and talk about themselves, it was a very like compassionate moment. And that's just was my favorite part of being main event.
I think for me is when I would do, I'd go visit like the blank canvas drawing room. And whenever there were kids in there, I'd be like, I'm blank canvas. They're like, this is your room. We want to draw with. And they'd be so excited about drawing with blank canvas. And I was like, oh, just really made me feel like the character.
For
like,
real.
Art with kids.
You can tell kids especially get probably the most out of meeting those characters more than anyone else. So I think that's definitely a super rewarding thing. Yeah. For me, yeah. Like I've said several times, it's just meeting people, hearing their stories. If I were to name like a singular moment, I don't know. There's so many, but Bronypalooza was always a lot of fun for me personally. That was, I mean, those performances, there will never be another concert quite like that, especially the one we had last year, which was just over the top amazing, just with how many people were there, some of the headlining acts that we had, and just seeing everybody get super hyped. I think that was one of the most fun things for me, was emceeing the concert specifically. Yeah, so let's move on. What was it like to see people carrying the character you were playing, says Tech Bandit. Yes, that's right. Our plushes. I have my, ooh, that's kind of freaky. See, when I had this here before earlier, I could get it to only show that. See, like that shows up all right. But if I'm also in it, it kind of freaks out a bit.
There can't be two of you. It's just that.
It's like that Spider-Man meme, like pointing at the other Spider-Man. That's like, there was someone, I still don't know their name, and that's a shame, but there was someone who had like a really cool, super well-made Hoof Beatz fursuit. You guys probably saw it too. Yeah. At several points. Super high quality, amazing fursuit of Hoof Beatz that I always thought was super cool. And every time I saw that person, I always made sure to get a photo with them because I thought that was very well done. So we still got a lot more. Let's see how many more we can get through.
Oh, yeah, it's fun because when I saw someone carrying a blank canvas plushie, it would be like, oh, that's me! And they'd be like, it is you!
I still do that. I know. If I ever see Main Event anywhere, I'm like, this is me, this is my child!
You know what's funny is there's very little fan art of my actual like personal OC. But there's one image of it on Derpy Buru that is tagged as OC Hoof Beatz. Even though it's not, it's my OC, but that's just what that person, I think the person who commissioned it like met me at BronyCon, so they didn't know like my actual name, which by the way was always a weird thing too. BronyCon, obviously, like we were in the spotlight a lot, but it wasn't the type of thing where you necessarily like take home that recognition with you, because it's not you, it's the character, right?
Yeah.
And so I still have people that are like surprised to find out that that was me, or like even people that I've worked with at Everfree that like are just now making the connection, like, oh, it was you, like, yeah, what's up, you know? So that was always interesting as well. Okay, more questions. Red Card says, hey guys, I miss you so much. Heart. Hi, Red Card, miss you too. What was the most memorable moment as the Mascots? And if there was anything you could do differently, what would you do? I think we're going to focus on the second half of that because we kind of talked about euphoric moments and such. But that's a really interesting second half. Would there be anything we would choose to do differently if we could do it over again? I'm not sure. Might have to think about that for a moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was pretty happy with how things went.
Yeah, I might avoid throwing up in the trash. No regrets. I mean, again,
gotten like less stiff wings because I kept smacking people with them.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was definitely a thing.
And trying to like, people would try and put their arms around me for pictures and be like, no, the wing, no, don't do it, no. Okay.
I remember seeing you have to like turn into certain doorways so that you can like actually fit through with the wings. Although the wings are, I think, integral to the character as well.
They're kind of iconic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, it'd be like having Main Event without her horn too. That wouldn't work either.
That didn't happen for a while during my first one. There was no horn, and I was like, I've never worn a horn before. I don't know where it goes. Then we figured it out. It was okay.
Yeah, I don't know, like, if I have a good specific answer to that question. It's a tough question. Right, if I think of anything later, I'll try and DM you, because that is an interesting one. Coaster Brony says, not a question. I just wanted to say that you were my favorite part of BronyCon other than meeting the VIPs. Thank you. Love you all.
That's so sweet.
That's very sweet. You were our favorite part. Dusty Cat. Hi, Dusty. Hi, yous all. Just want to say it was a pure pleasure working with you three every year during the charity auction. That was so much fun.
That was so much fun.
Vanna Whiting.
Yes. All the poses, all the fun we got to have with that. Charity auctions are one of my favorite events at any convention that I go to. So it was especially nice to get to participate in those. Even if it was just item running, which, I used to do that for like my high school auctions and stuff too. It's always fun. But again, just getting to see the generosity of the community up close. Because I mean, I don't even know the number off the top of my head, but I know that the auction last year broke every record, completely shattered every record for funds raised during a Brony convention charity auction. So thank you to all of you for being so generous.
It was always really cool to see the stuff in there too. It was always super cool.
Yeah, so many cool things, like things I don't even know how to begin to make those sorts of crafts. There's so much talent in this community. Bravery the Brony. Hi, Bravery says, whose costume was hardest to make? Definitely not mine. Mine was
Shelby, I think.
I think I'm the only one that made something from scratch, and because Main Event's color palette is so specific, I actually ended up having to layer 2 different fabrics on top of each other and alter a pattern. So I think it was probably mine.
That's a very good chance. Shout out again to Bravery. Bravery made my Hoof Beatz headphones that I used in the last few years. These ones right here. These are super cool, and they're so much better than the ones that, see, that they're not going to show up right with my background. I have to kind of hold them in front. They're so much better than the generic yellow ones that I found originally. These are literally like he took, I don't know what brand these are, but he took these, and this is all hand painted. The color is exactly the right tone. And it's great. And there's only one other copy of these that made it into the charity auction, and I forget how much it went for, but there's only one other person who has one of these. And there's work. Mine are missing the cable because I don't want a cable just dangling, so I can't actually use these, but that's okay. I love them regardless. So thanks for that, Bravery. Chaco, hi Chaco, says, what elements did you add to your mascots' personalities that ended up being adapted across other BronyCon departments? I like to think, and I'm probably wrong about this, but after 2015, that first year where I was Hoof Beatz and I ended up in the infirmary, next year the infirmary sign was Hoof Beatz in bandages, and I like to think that that's a reference to that. Even if it's not, to me, that's what that means.
I don't know if they adapted anything from us. That'd be cool, though. Find out later.
Yeah, it might be better to ask some of the people that work in those departments. We'll probably have better answers for that, actually. Let's
It's
see.
funny because sometimes, like, a lot of the staff didn't even know we had mascots in the beginning.
Yeah,
They'd be
yeah.
like, oh, are you cosplaying as Blank Canvas? Like, no, I am Blank Canvas. And they're like,
I have to say, it was so fun being out of cosplay, walking around and just being like incognito mode. Like, you don't know who I am. Whereas normally you'd walk down the hall and every few feet, hey, photo. And then getting to kind of escape that. When I say escape, I mean that not in like, I love taking photos with people, but sometimes it did make it a slow progression getting from place to place.
Well, it's kind of fun getting to see people enjoy things without drawing attention to yourself too. So just getting to see the pure joy happening. And sometimes, like, if you're out of costume and you're just like, yeah, what do you think about the mascots? And they're like, oh my gosh, I think they're so cute. You're like, I know nothing of that.
Yes, I agree.
I will say my first year, I did get a lot of, I really like your main event cosplay. And I'm like,
I really like
main
your
event.
main event cosplay.
I know you don't know my face, but
you will.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're running low on time here, so I'm going to try and do speed round for some of these. And maybe if there's other questions that didn't get answered, maybe we can try and look through the chat afterwards as well. Let's see. What was it like to sing that BronyCon song Daniel Ingram wrote? That was very fun. I felt very privileged to have been able to be a part of that. What year was that? That was 2017, 18?
No, I think 17.
Something like that. Yeah. And Daniel wasn't even there that year, but I mentioned that when he was there the next year afterwards, how cool it was. And just like, hey, I thought that song was amazing. The fact that someone from the show was able to write that song for the con was really special, I think.
Performing it was a little weird because none of us had any time to practice together in person.
Yeah.
A lot of really tight harmonies. That's like, did we pull those off? I'm not sure.
We also had to sort of retool it a bit because the song was meant as a duet, right? But there were 3 of us, so we had to kind of split things up in kind of a strange way, but it ended up working out, I think. Let's see, more questions. How did we get involved in working with conventions, period, to begin with? Was BronyCon the first con anyone here staffed?
Besides like local anime conventions, yes.
Yeah, it's my first time like staffing. I used to do a lot of improv and sketch comedy at conventions, but never staffing.
Well, let's tool it this way then. How did we each get into cons generally? Like what was everyone here's first con? Mine was Emerald City Comic Con 2012 in Seattle.
I think mine was AWA Anime Weekend Atlanta in like 2007 or 2008. I did not wear a wig and was dressed like Detective Conan characters. It was very weeby.
I think mine was Florida SuperCon sometime in the early 2000s. And my first cosplay ever was Applejack. I used my own hair, just closet cosplay.
Works.
Short shorts, straight.
Yeah. For me, that first con I went to, like, really, I knew nothing about that whole side of fandom until I went the first time, and then I was immediately hooked. Although I have to say my favorite convention of all time, other than BronyCon or Everfree, is SakuraCon in Seattle. It's one of the larger anime conventions in the country, and unfortunately it didn't happen this year with everything going on, but shout out to SakuraCon for being very close to my heart. Okay, we've got only like 5 minutes left, maybe even less, so have Ma J Brony1, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, says, have you all ever thought of being mascots for another con sometime in the future?
If someone asks me to, it was a fun job.
Yeah,
like sure. It's hard for me to just attend cons now because of staffing one. It's just so much more fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. If I'm not staff at a con, it's that same anxiety where I'm like, I feel like I need to go put out fires when it's not my job to do that, you know? So, I especially have trouble just being an attendee. If I'm there to run a booth, I feel better about that. If I'm there to staff in some capacity, I feel better about that. If I'm doing basic, or at least running a panel, I like being on panels. If I have absolutely nothing going on, it's a little different, except again, SakuraCon. I think a lot of people tend to have one con where they let themselves relax completely and have no responsibilities. SakuraCon is that one for me.
Cons have kind of been like a job for me for the past few years. I've been pretty much solely going to BronyCons, like horse cons for the past 3-4 years.
All right, I'm gonna make this the last question because we got to wrap up here pretty soon. TJ says, do you 3 ever have the urge to cosplay as the BC mascots again? Did you guys ever end up with any of the outfits / wigs? Yeah, I still have all of my costume. I mean, it was all things that I bought. You know, I wasn't reimbursed for any of it. It is stuff that just belongs to me. And again, because it's closet cosplay, I end up just wearing bits and pieces of it casually, fairly often, actually, just because it's, why not? It's a perfectly good shirt, perfectly good pair of pants. Maybe not the wig so much out in public, but yeah, I still have the whole costume.
Yep, same. I have it down in like a suitcase in storage. Only thing I don't have are those wings because I sent them with a friend and was supposed to get them from her and then forgot. But
and I mean, you probably went through several sets of them too, right? Yeah. What about you, Shelby?
I've still got mine. I just packed everything up and put it in storage because eventually I'm going to move away. And so I'm on light capacity for all my costumes. But it just seems kind of, it seems like I would need to have a reason to take main event to a con because otherwise nobody really understands the context of the character. And I have so many costumes. I probably have like 100 costumes, 100 wigs in my house. So, and I'm always finding something new that I'm excited and ready to try. So if there's a reason, like if the 3 of us are at a con and want to be the BronyCon mascots, I am super down for that.
Awesome. All right, so we're pretty much out of time. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Thank you for coming to PonyFest. Be sure, if you haven't yet, to check out the vendor hall, because part of why we started PonyFest to begin with is to support those vendors whose income has been impacted by all this COVID-19 stuff. So definitely check them out. Before we go, I'll just let you guys quickly plug your social medias.
My Instagram is HereBeWiggles, and my Twitter, I think, is also HereBeWiggles.
I think it is, yes.
I don't use it, sorry.
My Twitter is Shelbeanie. My Instagram and my Facebook are Shelbeanie Cosplay. My TikTok is Shelbeanie143 if you want to look at all my Gravity Falls stuff that I put up there.
Oh, great.
All right. My Twitter, which really is the only thing I use that anyone should follow because I don't post much on anything else, is at Coldaneault. It's my full name. It's spelled weird. COLEDAIGNEAULT. Or you can look up Simul and it'll probably show up. Anyway, that's me. Thank you so much for coming, guys. Please enjoy the rest of PonyFest. Bye-bye. Now we just smile and wave till they tell us we're clear.
Bye. Goodbye.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.